Dwight D. Eisenhower, from warrior to statesman, a five-star general who never fired a shot in combat, a president who built America's backbone while warning of its hidden dangers. Today we explore Dwight D. Eisenhower, the warrior statesman who shaped modern America. Early life and military beginnings. Born David Dwight Eisenhower on October 14, 1890, in Denison, Texas, Ike was the third of 7 sons in a modest family. His parents soon moved to Abilene, Kansas, where his father worked at a local creamery. Growing up in this small Midwestern town instilled in young Eisenhower the values of hard work, religious faith, and community that would guide him throughout his life. His childhood was typical of turn-of-the-century America, fishing in local streams, playing baseball, and developing a lifelong passion for outdoor activities. Though not initially a standout student, Eisenhower possessed natural leadership abilities that emerged early. His mother, a pacifist with Mennonite roots, reluctantly supported his decision to attend West Point Military Academy in 1911. At West Point, Eisenhower proved himself a capable student, graduating 61st in a class of 164 in 1915. A class that would eventually produce 59 generals. His true talents lay not in academic brilliance, but in his extraordinary ability to build consensus and manage complex personalities, skills that would prove invaluable in his later career. After graduation, Lieutenant Eisenhower was stationed in Texas, where he met Mamie Dowd, the daughter of a successful Denver businessman. They married in 1916 and had 2 sons, Dowd Dwight, who tragically died of scarlet fever at age 3, and John, who would later follow his father into military service. World War I brought Eisenhower his first significant command, though not the combat experience he desired. As commander of a tank training center at Camp Colt in Pennsylvania, he demonstrated exceptional organizational skills, but never saw action overseas. The armistice was signed just 1 week before his scheduled deployment to Europe. This missed opportunity would haunt the ambitious young officer for years. The interwar years, preparation for greatness. The interwar period might have relegated Eisenhower to obscurity like many military officers of his generation. Instead, it became his crucible of preparation. Serving under General Fox Conner in Panama from 1922 to 1924 proved transformative. Conner, a brilliant military intellectual, became Eisenhower's mentor, guiding his reading of military classics and discussing strategy at length. Fox Conner was the ablest man I ever knew, Eisenhower later reflected. His influence on me was profound. With Conner's recommendation, Eisenhower attended the Army's Command and General Staff School at Fort Leavenworth, graduating first in his class of 275 in 1926. This achievement marked him as an officer of exceptional promise. The 1930s brought assignments that further broadened his perspective. As an aide to Army Chief of Staff General Douglas MacArthur, Eisenhower gained invaluable exposure to high-level military planning and politics. When MacArthur became military advisor to the Philippines in 1935, Eisenhower accompanied him to Manila. Though their relationship eventually soured due to philosophical differences about leadership, these years provided Eisenhower with crucial experience in diplomacy and international relations. By the time he returned to the United States in 1939, with war looming in Europe, Lieutenant Colonel Eisenhower had developed a sophisticated understanding of military strategy and coalition building that few American officers could match. World War II, the Supreme Commander. When Pearl Harbor thrust America into World War II in December 1941, Eisenhower was serving as Chief of Staff to General Walter Kruger at the Third Army in Texas. Army Chief of Staff General George Marshall quickly summoned him to Washington to work on war plans for the Pacific Theater. Eisenhower's organizational genius and diplomatic skills impressed Marshall so deeply that by June 1942, he was appointed commander of U.S. forces in the European theater. His meteoric rise continued when he was named Supreme Commander of Allied Forces for Operation Torch, the November 1942 invasion of North Africa. This first major Allied offensive succeeded brilliantly, though not without controversy. Eisenhower's pragmatic decision to work with Admiral François Darlan, a former Vichy French official, sparked criticism but ultimately facilitated Allied objectives. This episode revealed Eisenhower's willingness to make difficult political decisions in service of military goals, a hallmark of his leadership style. Success in North Africa led to command of the Sicily campaign and then the Italian invasion. By December 1943, Eisenhower had been selected as Supreme Allied Commander for Operation Overlord. the massive cross-channel invasion of Nazi-occupied Europe. The D-Day landings on June 6, 1944, represented the culmination of Eisenhower's strategic vision and leadership. The decision to launch the invasion, despite questionable weather, demonstrated his willingness to assume enormous responsibility. Before the operation, he drafted a statement to be released in case of failure, taking full personal blame, a note he fortunately never needed to issue. "Our landings have failed," he wrote, "and I have withdrawn the troops. If any blame or fault attaches to the attempt, it is mine alone." As Allied forces pushed across France and into Germany, Eisenhower managed the competing egos of commanders like Montgomery, Patton, and Bradley, while maintaining the complex coalition of American, British, French, and other Allied forces. When Germany finally surrendered on May 7, 1945, Eisenhower had orchestrated one of history's most remarkable military campaigns. From military to civilian leadership. After the war, Eisenhower served briefly as military governor of the American occupation zone in Germany before returning home as Army Chief of Staff. In 1948, he retired from active duty to become president of Columbia University, an unusual transition that revealed his growing interest in public service beyond the military sphere. His tenure at Columbia was brief and not entirely successful. The academic environment proved a poor fit for his practical leadership style. In 1950, President Truman called him back to service as the first Supreme Commander of NATO forces in Europe, where he worked to build a unified military alliance against potential Soviet aggression. Throughout this period, both political parties courted the immensely popular general. Though Eisenhower had never declared a party affiliation, he finally announced himself a Republican in 1952 and entered the presidential race. With the campaign slogan, "I like Ike," capturing his broad appeal, Eisenhower defeated Democratic candidate Adlai Stevenson in a landslide, bringing Republicans back to the White House after 20 years. The Eisenhower presidency, domestic achievements. Taking office in January 1953, President Eisenhower brought a moderate, modern republicanism to domestic policy. Despite his military background, he proved adept at civilian leadership, combining fiscal conservatism with pragmatic acceptance of many New Deal programs. "I'm conservative when it comes to economic problems, but liberal when it comes to human problems," he explained. His signature domestic achievement was the interstate highway system authorized by the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. This massive infrastructure project, the largest public works program in American history, transformed the nation's transportation network while serving important national defense purposes. Today, the 47,000-mile system stands as perhaps his most visible legacy. Eisenhower also established the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare and expanded Social Security coverage to an additional 10 million Americans. His administration created NASA in response to the Soviet launch of Sputnik in 1957, initiating the space race that would culminate in the moon landing a decade later. On civil rights, Eisenhower's record was mixed. Though personally uncomfortable with racial activism, he sent federal troops to enforce school integration in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957, when Governor Orville Faubus defied the Supreme Court's Brown v. Board of Education decision. He also signed the Civil Rights Acts of 1957 and 1960, the first federal civil rights legislation since Reconstruction. Eisenhower's leadership style as president was often misunderstood. His deliberate public statements and delegation of authority led some to view him as disengaged. In reality, he exercised what scholars now call hidden hand leadership, working behind the scenes while maintaining a public image of being above partisan politics. Cold War architect. In foreign policy, Eisenhower's military experience informed his approach to the intensifying Cold War. Within 6 months of taking office, he secured an armistice ending the Korean War, fulfilling a campaign promise to bring American troops home. His new-look defense policy emphasized nuclear deterrence as a cost-effective alternative to maintaining large conventional forces. This approach, sometimes called massive retaliation, aimed to prevent Soviet aggression while reducing military spending. Every gun that is made, every warship launched, every rocket fired signifies, in the final sense, a theft from those who hunger and are not fed, those who are cold and are not clothed, he declared in his famous Chants for Peace speech of 1953. The Eisenhower years saw the expansion of American covert operations through the CIA, including controversial interventions that toppled governments in Iran, 1953, and Guatemala, 1954. These actions reflected Cold War imperatives but created lasting complications in American foreign relations. During the Suez Crisis of 1956, Eisenhower firmly opposed the British, French, and Israeli invasion of Egypt, forcing their withdrawal and demonstrating American independence from European colonial interests. This stance enhanced U.S. standing in the developing world but strained relations with traditional allies. In his final years in office, Eisenhower pursued détente with the Soviet Union, inviting Premier Nikita Khrushchev to visit the United States in 1959. These efforts collapsed when a U-2 spy plane was shot down over Soviet territory in May 1960, forcing Eisenhower to take responsibility for the surveillance program and scuttling a planned summit in Paris. Legacy and final year. Perhaps Eisenhower's most prophetic moment came in his farewell address of January 17, 1961, warning against the unwarranted influence of the military-industrial complex. He cautioned, "In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist." This warning from a five-star general and two-term president resonates even more powerfully today than when it was delivered. After leaving office in 1961, Eisenhower retired to his farm in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. He wrote his memoirs, painted landscapes, and played golf while occasionally advising President Kennedy and his successors. His health gradually declined following several heart attacks, and he died at Walter Reed Army Hospital on March 28, 1969, at age 78. Eisenhower's historical reputation has risen significantly over time. Once dismissed by some historians as a caretaker president, he is now recognized as a shrewd leader whose calm demeanor masked political skill and strategic vision. His centrist approach to governance, commitment to fiscal responsibility, and warnings about excessive military spending remain relevant in today's polarized political environment. From the beaches of Normandy to the Oval Office, Dwight Eisenhower embodied a uniquely American journey. The Kansas boy who became a five-star general and two-term president left an indelible mark on the nation he served for over 5 decades. His legacy is one of principled leadership, pragmatic problem-solving, and unwavering dedication to the country he loved. Eisenhower's America, a land of atomic dread and economic confidence, racial strife and infrastructure triumph. The last president born in the 19th century left roads we still travel and warnings we still ignore.